have more in the fray, and we have other plans as well. And we would, during the session and later as well, now that we are all connected, we would request you also to share your inputs on what topics would be of greater interest to the larger community, to the SAP user community. And then basis the feedbacks which we get, we will certainly plan more such sessions. Our objective within Indus and as part of Indus board is to drive highest adoption and highest value creation out of the SAP investments which respective companies have made. That's our plan. And it cannot be done without building due capabilities within the SAP support team. And that is why, and that's the focus of the program which we are doing today. And as Mukesh mentioned, we would be doing more such programs in the coming future. I think, Mukesh, that's what I just wanted to highlight. And you can always reach out to on issues related to SAP to one of the board members. The list would have been circulated already by Mukesh. Otherwise, we'll share that. And if there is any topic which you would like us to work on with you, we'll be more than happy to support you on that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Atul, for kicking us off. Just so that everyone is aware, this is a 7-part series. You have registered for all 7, so it will be the same link that you will be using for all the sessions. We hope that you are able to attend all 7, because the way we have designed it is such that if you have attended all 7, you should be more than you should have enough information for you to not only find standard Fiori apps, but also learn how to develop a Fiori app, and also kind of know all the deployment options from there on. So I would also like to thank Toros. Taurus has been instrumental in finding us the right speakers who can actually deliver the entire content. He, in fact, put together the entire speakers for the entire series. So, without further ado, I'll hand it over to Taurus. Taurus.
Thanks, Mukesh. So it was definitely a team effort putting this together. So we'll provide you guys a good value add in the next coming days. So we're planning on having 6 sessions. So as Mukesh mentioned, today's session we're going to cover UX strategy and roadmap. Tomorrow we're going to cover Business Application Studio Fiori tools, Fiori elements. On Thursday we're going to cover SAP UI5. So that should give you a good basis to build on for next week. Next Tuesday, we're going to cover, on October 5th, we're going to cover Fiori Launchpad. And then following the Fiori Launchpad on October 6th, we're going to cover SAP Mobile Start. And then finally, putting everything together on October the 7th, implementing Fiori, focusing on implementing Fiori for S/4HANA, and then using the SAP BTP to build your use cases. So before we get started, I just want to let you guys know that we've put together this customer value network, the SAP BTP customer value network, where you guys can all get plugged in to get the latest information on SAP strategy and innovations around BTP and UX. Also, you get connected to topic experts, peers, technical content, and so on and so forth. So you can definitely get connected. We have some upcoming events that we're planning. So on September 29th, tomorrow, in the Asia Pacific and Japan time zone, we're looking at putting together. We have this webinar, SAP Customer Value Network, move to SAP S/4HANA with SAP Integration Suite. So if you're on an on-prem install base, this is a great session to join to understand the benefits of moving to SAP S/4HANA with Integration Suite. And then we have on October the 6th, where we've got one in partnership with Deloitte, creating an open and agile enterprise with unified data and real-time analytics. So that's a whole session on Analytics Cloud. And then the last one is maybe a different, a time zone that's not really convenient for you guys, but this is a 3-day webinar series focused on BTP. Also, we've got a garage series going, so we're already on episode 6 this year. So our next episode is on optimizing healthcare enterprise capacity planning with SAP Analytics Cloud. So every month we focus on Discovery Center mission. So this week is optimizing healthcare. This is more of a hands-on enablement, so it's sort of one level deeper than our regular monthly practitioners call that we do. So this again gives you a little bit more hands-on enablement and expert guidance. And then finally, for those who haven't signed on and would like to, we've got 3 other practitioners forums. My colleague Peter Spielvogel and Conrad Bernal run the SAP Screen Personas Practitioners Forum. I run the SAP Fiori along with my colleague Jocelyn Dart and Simon Kemp, who run the APJ one, the SAP Fiori UX Practitioners Forum, and then we run the SAP BTP Practitioners Forum. I host the later one, and my colleagues Risha Sharma and Rajesh Raghupati run the APJ one. So if you're interested in joining any one of these, please do register or reach out to me, and I'll send you the link. And with that, I want to hand it over to Tom. Tom, you're on mute, I think.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're very far. Your audio is very far.
I think I need to use my other.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes,
Much better.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, so thank you for having me here, and welcome to this session on Fiori. Give you an overview basically of Fiori, the UX strategy that we have, and Fiori itself. And let me quite simply start by sharing my my screen and just get that.
Taurus, you'll have to stop sharing so he can share.
Okay, so just here we go, and I will start by simply showing the PowerPoint slideshow. Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes, Thomas, we can see this.
Yes, Thomas.
Okay. So I'll be including some future-looking statements about our plans. So of course we have the usual legal disclaimer here that our plans can change. Of course, that's normal. So let's start off simply with an introduction of SAP Fiori. Then I'll be telling you about design. I'll be telling you about what's in the in the product available today, and also give you an outlook. So to start off with, and this is like Taurus mentioned, the first in a longer series. So I really want to start by making clear the value of good user experience, because often enough you might be asked by business, well, why should I invest so much in the user experience? We need to get our business supported. We have to have the processes running. We have to have the features and functions. Otherwise, we can't do our business, right? And obviously that's true. And of course, how do you measure the benefits of actually having a good user experience? And the good news is, in fact, you can also put a monetary value to it. It's not just the human value of making users more satisfied. You can actually quantify a gain in productivity and also data quality. So if the user experience is good, you're going to have users making less mistakes, and therefore the data is going to have a higher quality. And as you all know, if you have to repair data later along the process, that can be very costly. So that, of course, is a big advantage. Then, of course, if you have an intuitive user experience, you can save on training costs. Finally, of course, you can also decrease the amount of change requests, for example, that come to IT. So if you're actually building UIs yourself, and the users are not happy, they want to change things, etc. Obviously, if you've got a good user experience, then you won't have that. And again, it goes a little bit hand in hand with data quality. Of course, user errors will be reduced. And of course, you can actually calculate, if you're building your own UIs, for example, the benefits of having a good user experience. Obviously, there's also the human side of things, so just simply increasing user satisfaction. And these days, that is really important because, you know, everyone these days, they're using Zoom, they're using mobile phones, they're planning their travel or holidays or whatever, all with applications or mobile apps, web apps, whatever, and they now just have a different expectation of what to expect from a user experience. So, of course, they now come in, especially the young employees in the workforce, expecting to have a good user experience. And of course, that becomes very important. Inclusion is important, that we support accessibility for people with visual impairments. And of course, if you're building UIs for customers, customer loyalty, and solution adoption is important, obviously, for an IT department, that your business is actually adopting the solutions you're giving them. And if the users don't like it, then you might end up having them using, I don't know, Excel or spreadsheets, and hardly ever actually putting data in the system. And of course, that then is also a part of strengthening your relationship as an IT team with the actual business units. So that, of course, also is more the human side of things. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, basically, Fiori is the sweet spot, like we say, where we bring the business needs, so digitalization, simplification, cloud readiness, along with, of course, leading edge technology, so the web and open standards, service orientation, and so on, to the actual user. So, and of course, we've been user-centered is a key part of Fiori, that we really focus on what the end user needs, inclusive, so accessibility for people with visual impairments. We've introduced a design-driven development approach, that we really look at what the user needs before doing the designs, and one user experience for SAP solutions. So with Fiori, we've defined a target design and also now achieved the look of Fiori across our suite of products, so that they feel like they come from one family. So looking now at the strategy, if you like, sort of high level, one user experience across our products is of course key, and again, user centricity is really important for high user adoption and customer success. And in fact, in the next weeks and months, you'll probably be hearing more from us about how we are accelerating and, you know, even more going to be focusing on this user centricity. So do tune into Tech Ed that's taking place mid-November to hear a little bit more about that. Of course, obviously the desktop is still very key for SAP environments, for ERP, for business environments. So we're of course looking to make sure we have a consistent web experience on the desktop, tablets and phones, also with a single point of entry, so that users enter their work in one place and then can go from there to whatever they need to do. Obviously, this builds on having responsive Fiori apps, but also using the classic, what we call classic web apps, for example, for S/4HANA. Obviously, we have a combination of both, and these are very much in focus, that we make sure that we have this consistent experience across all the technologies. Obviously, the web is one aspect, but of course, increasingly native mobile is becoming increasingly important. So we're also leveraging the native experience where it makes sense to optimize the device capabilities, for example, that you have, you know, using the camera, for example, things like that, or location services. And of course, also we're looking at areas where it makes sense to leverage even more cutting edge technologies like augmented reality and of course machine learning. And machine learning brings me then to this aspect here, the context awareness and integrated artificial intelligence. So we are very much now looking at how, and also providing scenarios where the system can actually either learn or use rule-based artificial intelligence to guide the user and provide a reliable and trustworthy augmentation for the user. Rather than the user having to work out how to do things and so on, the system can actually make suggestions and can help the user plan their work, make decisions, and so on. And of course, very important is this trustworthiness, because users obviously want to trust the proposals the system is making. You don't want to get into trouble with your boss because you followed the advice that the system made, right? So you have to have the trustworthiness there. Of course, important also, coming back to the mobile side, is this any device. So of course, we aim to have a seamless experience so that you could start on the desktop and then maybe move to your mobile device and continue the work there, or maybe you've done some work mobile and you come back to the office and then you pick it up when you're back at the office. So obviously that's an aspiration, and of course not every user is working mobile. It's also key.
So Tom, just there is a feedback coming in on the chat that your voice is really low. So if you can either speak up a little bit or move closer to the mic, that will be great.
Okay, so maybe what I'll do actually, maybe I'll try my headset.
Yeah.
And you can just maybe tell me whether that works better. That sometimes solves the problem. Just have to disentangle it. One with wires, which is better, more reliable with my laptop. I have a Windows laptop. Let me just try this. You can tell me.
Hello, can you hear me better
Much
now?
better. Much better.
Okay.
Much better.
Okay, very good. So very good that you mentioned it. Thank you for that. Okay, so just to wrap up this slide, so the one user experience for the intelligent enterprise, that is of course a strategy we have with the one user experience for all the applications, of course, web, mobile, building in artificial intelligence and with a seamless approach. Obviously, that's something we haven't got everywhere. It's something we aspire to, of course, and we are increasingly quarter by quarter delivering more and more of that. So let's have a look at what
Tom, request if you can just quickly go through the slide again because we could not hear you.
Okay, certainly. Sorry.
Thank you very much.
If it was that bad, certainly I will, of course, go through again. So basically, of course, the web experience, desktop experience is, of course, core and continues to be very important in an ERP business environment, obviously. So we are, of course, have a big focus on making sure that we have a marvelous and delightful desktop experience. This is, of course, not only desktop, but also tablet and partly phone as well. So the web is an important part of our user experience. And we, with a single point of entry. So we're working towards, of course, providing one entry point so that user, even if they use different SAP products, have one point where they can start the day, get an overview, and then access their applications. Of course, in the web, we're building on responsive SAP Fiori apps, but also on what we call the harmonized classic web apps. So SAP Goof for HTML, Web Bin Pro, etc., in the S/4HANA space, so that we have a combination. Of course, we can't replace everything in one go with Fiori, so the two worlds work together. So this, of course, is a cornerstone. Obviously, the web goes only so far if you're going to mobile devices, so we are investing, in fact, more so than in the past now, on native mobile experience, optimizing to user device capabilities like the camera, like the location where the user is, and so on. And of course, not only looking at smartphones and watches, but also looking at where it makes sense, looking at even more leading edge technologies like augmented reality. And of course, machine learning. This could be also native mobile. iOS has now AI capabilities built in, but also, of course, in the back end. This is where we come here to this context awareness and integrated artificial intelligence, where we're building in intelligent support of the user. So the user can get guided, can be augmented using insights the system generates, so that rather than the user being left alone to make decisions, the system can really make suggestions, recommendations, how to actually go forward. And of course, these obviously have to be reliable, but in particular also trustworthy, because the user doesn't want to get into trouble with their boss if they're following the advice that the system made and it turns out that it was the wrong advice. So they get into trouble. So they want to, of course, trust the system is making a good proposal, for example, so that they can follow it. So this is, I'll come to that a little bit later, about how we're bringing in artificial intelligence into the user experience. Coming back to the mobile side, any device here, of course, means if you start maybe working on the desktop and then you go out, then you maybe want to continue the work on a smartphone or a tablet, or vice versa. Maybe you started, you've been doing your work on the road and then you come back into the office and then you want to continue there. So of course that also is important where it's appropriate. I mean, obviously not every worker has these mobile or these combined scenarios. But for example, a project manager is a typical case. He's or she is on the road and then comes into the office. So you need to combine both aspects. And like I said, the strategy is to have the one user experience overall for the intelligent enterprise, which is of course Fiori based. Okay, so Fiori as the design system. So we've had Fiori actually for quite a while now. I'll show you the evolution over the years, but what's been fairly constant over the last 6-7 years are design principles. So we've been focusing on a role-based approach, so designed for you, your needs, and how you work. So the applications really help you rather than you having to struggle with the system. Adaptiveness means it's a bit of an extension of responsiveness, that the applications will run on desktop and also mobile, so that you can have the same application running on different devices. Simplicity, of course, is a key aspect, so that it really keeps what's necessary. It's often very difficult to do because, of course, business systems can be very complex. You need a lot of information, and yet you have to still keep the design simple so that you only see what you need to see, and then as need be, you can, of course, go into the details. Coherency is very important, providing one fluid, intuitive experience across the various applications you use, so that each one is as simple as can be, but obviously still powerful. But if you use multiple different applications, then these all follow the same design principles. They all act the same way, so that you feel once you know one application, you know the other as well. So they're all very coherent. And then, of course, delightfulness is important. And perhaps I should have said, I'm the product manager at the beginning of the talk. I'm the Fiori product manager here at SAP. And I've actually been at SAP since '93, so quite a few years now, always in development and innovation areas. And back then, of course, we really had a focus mainly on features and functions, making sure the business can run. But now we are investing also capacity and development effort into making the user experience delightful. Because, as I said at the beginning, people now just expect to have this delightful experience when they're using software. So that's a very important principle that we've had over the last years. And we have, for this with Fiori, a number of design languages. A design language defines the look and feel. So that also is not just the visual look, but also the interaction. How do things interact? Also, it defines controls. So what do buttons look like? What do the fields look like? What does a table look like? But also even floor plans. So if you're looking at an object, we have an object page, an overview page. So more comprehensive patterns for working with the system. Of course, it also defines common functions like search or notifications. And we provide for designers guidelines and also stencils for actually designing applications. For the web, so we have the design language for Fiori for the web. We have a design language, in fact, we have two for native mobile, for iOS and Android. And we also have one for conversational user experience. And coming to the technologies, like I mentioned, iOS, Android are the two languages we have for mobile. SAP UI5 is our reference technology for the web. And we also, for example, via web components are supporting other technologies, which is primarily aimed actually SAP internal, because of course we've acquired quite a few companies over the years, and therefore they've obviously used various non-SAP technologies, obviously because they weren't part of SAP before, and so of course we're enabling them primarily with these other technologies. Of course, if you have your own systems that you've built yourself using other technologies, you can also profit from that. If you're building new, for example, web, then we would of course advise to go for SAP UI5 for a number of reasons, which I'll come also to a little bit later. So in a nutshell, Fiori is the user experience of the intelligent enterprise, enabling users to get their job done in an easy and delightful way. And it comprises of the design system that we just looked at. Of course, the user experience itself is provided by the products who actually build applications that follow the design guidelines. So we have responsive apps, also native ones for mobile. Of course, these applications, help users get their job done better. Then, if you're developing your own applications, we have SAP Fiori development tools that you can use. So these are the same tools that we use within SAP. So we have, for example, the Business Application Studio as an IDE. We used to have the Web IDE. Now we recommend the Business Application Studio. And of course, we also have, as a plugin there, the Fiori tools, or also the Fiori mobile SDKs. And then, of course, we actually have the runtime technology. So, of course, if you're in the web world, you might know about common frameworks like React or Angular. There, of course, we have SAP UI5 as our JavaScript framework, which actually, in fact, for business use cases is more powerful than React and Angular. And Fiori Elements on top of that, which support these floor plans out of the box. We'll come to that later. And of course, we also have the Launchpad as the entry point to access all your applications. So these are the runtime technologies that we have supporting Fiori. So I talked about the evolution that we've had. So Fiori actually started back in 2013, looking very much at casual users, self-service apps. So if you have to give thousands of employees access to the system to do a leave request, for example, or for manager approvals, then of course you don't want to necessarily use the old SAP UIs. So we started out with the mobile first approach for these self-service apps. Then we extended the design with Fiori 2.0 to more powerful web-based applications for the desktop. And in fact, also received Red Dot Design Awards for a lot of the concepts there. Then we extended to with a partnership with Apple, and then later on also with Google with Android to provide native iOS and Android SDKs. And we also started the journey with a conversational user experience with Copilot, which is now being actually re-engineered, and we're coming out with new conversational chatbots now with Fiori 3. We basically took these ideas, put it into the new target design, and focus on consistency across our products, focus on how can we bring intelligence into the user experience, and how can we support integration, of course, of many products. And those are the focus areas that I'll be now going through. So looking at the Fiori design, like I said, consistency, intelligence, and integration are the focus areas, if you like, that we've been looking at. Looking at consistency first, we've introduced the Quartz Light theme, which is the theme that we've standardized across all of our products. So you'll see if you look at the various products we have, that we have this theme, this kind of gray background with the blue bar at the top, shell header bar. It's defined like that so that the content has center stage. So the background really is more in the background. And
Tom, I think we lost your audio. Tom? Okay.
I think got disconnected.
He's still on the call, but let me give him a call.
Tom, we lost your audio. Yeah, I think he dropped off. So let's just give a minute for him to dial back in.
Sure.
So Taurus, are you calling him?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Just,
So while we wait for Thomas to kind of join in, maybe on the chat, can someone mention if you are already using Fiori in your organization? Yes or no? Just drop in on the chat. Thanks, Akshay. Thanks, Priyanka. Thanks. Okay, interesting. So there's a lot of yes, and there's a lot of and a little bit of no as well. Cool. So can I request people who are already using Fiori in your organization to have a look at the chat as well? And if you think there are questions there that you can answer, please feel free to answer them as well, because the entire idea of doing this as a community is so that we learn from each other. So it's not as if only someone from SAP needs to answer. You can answer those questions as well. And at the same time, if you think there are questions, please post your questions as well. And of course, we will also ask the SAP speaker at some point in time the questions that come up. But if you can answer them, please do answer those questions. While we still wait for Thomas to join in, Atul, if I may ask a question, the entire idea conceptualized. So, if you can just maybe shed a little bit of light on how did we come up with this idea, and what is the thinking behind something like this?
Mukesh, Tom is back. He had a
cool.
he had a network issue, so he's back.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll come back to Atul later. Tom.
Hello. Sorry about that. For some reason, my network obviously somehow fell down.
So as they say, right, everything and anything that can go wrong tends to go wrong.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So sorry about that. Fortunately, we do have a bit of time at least. So let me share my screen again. PowerPoint show. So did you hear me talk about this font 72 already, or did it break up before I got there?
I don't think we got there yet. Yeah. We didn't see it.
So you see it now?
Yes.
But you'll have to go back a slide or two, I think.
Okay, let me just go back a slide. Hang on, sorry. So did you see this slide about consistent?
No.
Further back.
Further back.
Did you see, sorry.
No.
Yes, we saw that.
Yeah.
Okay.
See this, yeah. 1,
Okay.
3.
All right, good. So haven't lost too much then. So
we've again lost him, I guess.
Tom?
Hello?
Yeah, you're cutting out.
Can you hear me still now or not?
I can hear you now, but you're intermittently cutting out.
Well, I'll stop my video then. Maybe that'll make things better.
Okay.
So is it better now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so hopefully maybe my bandwidth was simply getting a problem there with the video. Anyway, you now know what I look like. All right, so coming back to the slide here, consistency, intelligence, and integration. So we want to make sure we're consistent across our products. We want to, of course, look at focusing on bringing intelligence into the experience, and of course also integration, supporting integration across our products. So let's have a look at those aspects in more detail, starting with the design. So this is the Fiori Design. And again, consistency, intelligence, integration is the focus. So let's first have a look at the consistency part. And here we have introduced these visual design themes for Fiori 3. So the Quartz Light theme was introduced back in 2019 with this gray background and the dark blue shell header bar standardized there. We also have a dark version for low light environments. And we also have, for accessibility, high contrast light and dark themes for people who can't see so well and need a higher contrast. And we've standardized on the light theme across our product suite. So we'll look at that, see that a little bit later. What we also have is this font 72. So we actually have our own font that's designed for us. And I'm not a designer myself, so it's a bit difficult to explain why font 72 is so good, but it's really a little bit like Helvetica for a screen rather than for print. It's just, if you see websites or pages using the font, they just somehow, they just look nicer. So this is part of the Fiori design. Good legibility. We've also looked at accessibility to make sure that each of the letters are really easy to distinguish. And that's, like I said, part of the design. And in fact, we also got a Red Dot Design Award for that. And what we've also, of course, I was talking about consistency. As you can see here on the left, in the past, our various products that we had very different, even the shell header bars were different. So at the very top of the screen, Fieldglass or Concur, SuccessFactors and so on, they all look different. They at least had SAP somewhere, but otherwise look different. And we've standardized with Fiori 3 that we all have this shell header bar that we see here, with the user actions menu on the right, which is quite frequent in the internet. Of course, you have the user settings and so on the right, product specific actions, and then the home button or the logo replaces the home button to go to the start page. So this is, we've standardized here this with Fiori 3. And here you can see some examples across our product suite. So on the left, you see some examples from SAP S/4HANA. Here you see the start page of SuccessFactors, for example, or Marketing Cloud or Commerce Cloud. So you see now they've all applied the theme, and now the SAP products look as if they're coming from one family. What we've also been working on is, or as part of the Fiori 3 was, or Fiori in general, is embedded analytics. We got the Red Dot Design Award a few years ago for the concept behind that. The idea is that even users who are doing day-to-day work, they can actually profit from having these kind of graphical visualizations. You don't have to be just a pure analyst with an analytics hat on. Even if you're doing just day-to-day procurement or sales, it can be helpful having these kind of graphical elements, so kind of analytics, so to speak. And rather than showing you slides on this, I'll show you a demo in a moment. What we have with Fiori, and this is important for later, we have defined these patterns, Fiori elements, which support typical ERP use cases. So one here at the back is this list report where you have a list of data and you can filter them. This is a very typical scenario in S/4HANA, for example. Then you want to actually maybe look at an item. Then we have this object page for looking at, say, a product in this case, or looking at a customer or a supplier. We also have introduced, as part of the embedded analytics, this overview page that you get an overview of the work that you need. Maybe it's a project lead or a sales manager or a sales employee. We have this analytical list page, which is a list, but also with analytical elements. So you can filter the list also using the charts. And we also have a flexible column layout, which combines some of these patterns. So you have here the list on the left, but if you click on an item in the list, you then see the object page on the right. And in fact, you can even have up to 3 different columns. So if you had a table here, you could click here, and then details would appear on the right in the third layer. So this is also a powerful pattern combining some of the other ones, which can be also very useful for users. So rather than just talking about it, let's actually have a look in the system just so you get an idea of what this looks like in S/4HANA. And I need, of course, to go to the right screen for this. So this here is actually now an overview page.
Can't see the screen. We still see the PPT.
Yeah, sorry, I shared the, I will share.
I see the demo screen.
Yeah, the PPT, still the demo PPT.
So now you should see my demo screen. Right, excellent. Thanks for reminding me. I often just share my desktop, so of course then you would see everything. So this is S/4HANA system, S/4HANA Cloud, in fact, 2108 system, looking at the procurement overview page, so for an employee in procurement. And as you can see, you're getting an overview of various aspects relevant for your work. You can, in fact, change the size of these cards, for example, quite easily, so quite nice. You're seeing here supply performance monitoring, for example, but also here you see some red lights or red color monitoring purchase contracts is saying how are my contracts going in procurement? And you see here, this one, for example, is going to expire in 3 months' time. It's 82% consumed. Of course, if it's going to expire, then it's time to maybe negotiate a new one. And so when you click on the details here, you actually go to the object page of this particular contract. So this is another pattern that or floor plan that we talked about earlier. I might have a bit of network problems here, which may explain why it's taking so long. So here you see also the object page. So you have the header here about the supplier. You see also the statistics as a graphical element, percentage of consumption. Of course, additional information here. You can scroll down, of course, or you can go directly to elements. So if I go to the items, you see that this contract covers these different materials here. And I can also have a look at the release order documents. For some reason, this chart is not loaded yet. I can go to output control and see what's, it looks like the network really is rather slow today. So you see here the various messages I've sent or orders that have been completed, for example. Go back up and see, you can see the release order documents. Okay. Ah, here we go. Yeah. So basically you can see here by the months, how many release order, a net amount, in this case in dollars, you've been actually releasing from this contract by month. So it just shows how we are not only including the typical sort of tables and lists, but also graphical elements into our applications. I mentioned the list before, so of course you can actually, if you click on the header of one of these cards, you actually go into the actual list of all the contracts. So you see here where the contract has not been expired, so obviously the selection parameter is already taken up. And here you see now the list here. We have this grouping here, for example, by supplier. You can see also we have here these graphical elements in the list, these colors here, validity status, and so on. So that's also quite neat design in Fiori. And I mentioned that we also have not only just simple lists, but also these analytical list reports. So if I go into monitor purchase order items, for example, here, you can actually see so the delivery status is overdue. We see now the table here, which will appear in a moment, with all the overdue purchase order items. So in this case, 2,800. And what's quite neat is you can actually get an overall filter of this table using these graphical elements. So here you see we've got the filter like this, where you can you use your normal value select and choose stuff. But what you can also do actually is do it graphically. And you can see here, okay, most of them are, this is a demo system, so most of them are overdue, but you could say I want the overdue ones that are actually in approval. So this is actually 1K, the 1,000 roughly in approval. And if I choose that, then I'm filtering overall the amount for the overdue and in approval. So you see now the number will be reduced, of course. I'm sorry about the system being so slow. Of course, you can hide this if you want more space. And now you're looking at this list here of these items, and you see here a graphical representation. So you see that there are primarily frames, but also drivetrains, gears. So this company is a bicycle manufacturer in our demo system. And let's say now you want to look at the drivetrain. You can actually simply click here, and then the table is further filtered on drivetrain now. So you still have, of course, the filter that I applied before. Now we're looking at the drivetrain aspects. And now we only have the 98 items. We have some intelligence actually built in here. So if I select some of these items, I can also do a predicted delivery date, and what the system would make a prediction. You can, of course, also just change the visualization. So if you just want to see the table, you just get the table view. Of course, you could also, if you just wanted to see the chart view, do that. Let's go to both. And what's also quite neat is at the moment we have this column chart, but you can actually also quite easily choose different kinds of charts. Let's take a heat map, for example, where then the darkness of the color represents the amount, for example. And here again, I can let's choose drivetrain again, and then I'm filtering on drivetrain just like I was before with the 98 entries. So that's of course a powerful pattern that you see here. Let me now go back to sharing my presentation. Go. So far in the past, I mean, some of you might already be familiar with Fiori. We had the one home page with multiple groups. So basically it was one long page, and you could of course group your apps into groups, so to speak, these groups here. And we always advise don't put everything on the home page. So give people what's important to them on the home page, and they can still access everything else using the app finder, for example, or using search. And with Fiori 3 now, we also have a home navigation menu at the top that allows you to access all the apps that you have authorization for. But now we've introduced recently, well, actually last year, in fact, the spaces and pages approach, where we now have far more flexibility in how you actually group your applications on the home page. So basically, what we have is, of course, we have the tiles as before. You can group them now into what we call sections. And these can all then be put onto multiple pages. So you can have here, this is the blue, you see one page, but you can have multiple pages. So here, for example, I'm the sales manager, you see 3 potential pages. And as you can see here at the top, you can even have more than one of these, what we call spaces. So this space, sales management, has 3 pages, but you see we also have additional spaces. And the idea is that users, for the roles that they have, get assigned to a space for each role. So in this case, I would be, for example, have authorizations. I'd be working as a billing expert, if you like, also as an internal sales representative. But I also am maybe a sales manager of a small team, so I also have that role. And I have some shipping authorizations as well. So I'm doing some work in shipping of the actual products. What's good about spaces and pages, you've got far more flexibility in organizing the layout, and in particular, admins also now get a WYSIWYG editor for doing the layout. So it's overall easier to use, and in the cloud in particular, you have a stable layout. So even if new apps appear or you get new roles assigned, the layout stays stable. What's also new recently, this came out in the summer, is that we support what we call flat tiles now, and also the links are visualized in a nicer way. So it's not just pages full of these tiles, but it can be now much more interesting. And this is available with S/4HANA Cloud, also in the Launchpad service, and is coming next month with S/4HANA 2021 release. At least that's the current planning. Of course, like I said, our plans can change, but that's at the moment, it's going to also be in the S/4HANA 2021 on-premise release. And here again, rather than just looking at the slide, let's actually go and have a look at a demo. So I will just share that screen now. There we are. So here I am in the procurement system. And you can see here links, flat tiles, and of course, sorry. Let me just pause this. Sorry, I need to just go back in and adjust something. Sorry. So let me just share again. Okay. Yeah, so basically you can see I can just simply drag the tiles to the different areas. I can take a flat tile, drag it down here, make it into a link. And of course, I'm very flexible. What I can also do, in fact, is edit the page. If I want to turn a tile into a flat wide tile, for example, I can do that here. So here I can take this, convert it directly to, of course, to a tile, or convert it to a link that way. or also convert it to flat tile, or of course, as you saw, potentially also flat wide tile is also an option. So if I want the full text here to appear and not be cut off, I convert it to a flat wide tile, and then you see that you now see the whole text. And of course, you can move this around as you feel you need to. So this is what users can do, and of course, admins have a similar user experience when they are just go back and when they are setting up the pages and spaces for users. So I was talking about the Fiori user experience. So, you know, the Launchpad is the user experience. Where do you get this? You get it with the Fiori front-end server for your ABAP systems. So this could be for a business suite system, ECC system, but of course S4HANA, obviously. Often we recommend it that it actually runs embedded in an S4HANA system. It runs embedded in S4HANA Cloud. So of course in the cloud also then ABAP-based, it runs in S4HANA Cloud embedded, and also other ABAP-based cloud products like integrated business planning. And it's also this Fiori Launchpad user experience is also available in the cloud via the SAP Launchpad service, which runs on the business technology platform multi-cloud. And I'll come to that a little bit later about why we have this service in the cloud as a central entry point. So that was a lot about consistency, the consistent experience. I'm looking a little bit at time. I think I need to speed up a bit. We lost a bit of time with the connection. Let's move to intelligence. Basically, with intelligence, of course, we have applications that provide dynamic content, artificial intelligence explanations, and so on. And we've actually identified a number of design patterns that we have in our design guidelines for explanations, for matching of payments, for example, to invoices or deliveries, for ranking and making suggestions that way. And I'll show you that in a moment for recommendations. We also have a meta pattern called situation handling. And for dealing with business situations, explaining them, and so on. Important is user feedback. We also have patterns for that users can give feedback to help the algorithm learn better. And of course, obviously, predictions and forecasts is an important pattern that we have in the design system. And here you see an example in procurement of a ranking and an explanation popover and also feedback. And rather than actually just showing the slide, let me also here again show a demo. Just need to, in this case, it's a recording. It's always a little bit tricky to set these demos up. So I have, there's a recording. So I just need to get to the recording. Sorry, taking a bit longer. Okay. There we go. I'll just share the screen. There we are. So with this, again, it's in procurement, and basically a supplier has told me that although he had confirmed the delivery, something went wrong. He can't actually deliver everything on time. So I'm getting a notification. You see this here in the notification center of Fiori. Quantity deficit in supplier delivery. So basically this supplier cannot deliver the confirmed amount. If I click on the notification, that actually now takes me to the details and explains the situation. So I'm in this purchase order item. I get an explanation of the situation, that the supplier can't deliver everything on, in this case, that date. 50 pieces, or 50 each, are missing, and they are due in 7 days' time. So I have to find another supplier. I have here contact data if I want to ring the supplier, and I have alternative suppliers. The system is actually making suggestion here for an alternative supplier. I can pick one and simply create a purchase order, and then basically I am able to actually deal with the situation. So that's really a very quick little demo of how the system can really help users deal with a situation. Otherwise, you'd get some kind of notification. You'd have to start looking around yourself for what would be suitable suppliers, etc. So, yeah, in the interest of time, let's go back to the presentation.
So Tom, there's a number of questions in the chat. I don't know if you want to address them now or after your presentation.
Okay, sorry, I just realized that was the wrong demo. I'll come to that in a moment. Maybe I'll do it at the end, I think, because I've got quite a lot. Yeah. So sorry, that was actually the situation handling demo. So, explaining the situation handling and the recommended action and so on. What I previously showed you was this ranking example. So let me actually show you that live in the system. Which I can do very quickly. I'll just need to open up the app. And then I can share my screen. So it's this one here. So if you can see the screen, this is pretty much what we saw previously on the screenshot. So this is an application monitoring materials without contract. So these are obviously in procurement, you can save money if you negotiate a contract with a supplier because you're ordering a lot of the stuff or a lot of value. And so here you see these two dimensions, the number of items and how often are you ordering it, and here the value of the orders. But in fact, those are not the only two criteria. The system is now giving you a ranking here. So this is saying these are the materials most likely to make sense to actually negotiate a contract. If I scroll down, you see that there are actually some that are actually not being proposed because it's you probably wouldn't, you're not ordering that many of those materials, so it's not really worth it. And of course, to build trust, you want to have an explanation. So if I click on one of these here, you see that the total gross amount and the number of items is important.
Tom, the screen, the text in the screen is very, very small. So if you can just zoom in a little bit so that people can actually see the text as well.
Sure. I'll. Is that better like that, or should I zoom in?
Slightly more.
Is that better?
Maybe a little bit more. Yeah.
Is that okay like this, or even?
This is good.
Should be okay.
Yeah, this is okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Fine. Good. So let me just come back. So you see here this ranking. This, like I said, and of course you can actually click on one of the rank numbers here to get an explanation, and the total gross amount and the number of items. So the X and Y axes. These are obviously the two most important criteria, but we see also the days between the first and last order. So how often are you ordering it, the number of suppliers, the days since the last order. Maybe it's not relevant anymore if you haven't ordered it for a long time. So these are also all go into the calculation of this ranking. And as you can see here, this obviously helps the user plan their work, because then they can say, well, let me take maybe the first 3 ones to start with and then go and actually negotiate. You can see here, if I click here, you can actually go and start creating a request for quotation, go to different suppliers and take it from there. And what's also important is feedback aspect. So you can actually, maybe I would scroll down and have a look at some of these and decide, you know what, this really isn't relevant at all. Then you can dismiss it. And then the system can, of course, use that feedback to learn from that. So that's, of course, an important aspect as well. Okay, so let's go back to the slides. And yeah, I'm sorry about having a different order, but I've already shown you now the situation handling example as well. That's also an example where the system is helping the user deal with a situation that's suddenly popped up and giving a suggestion and a recommendation on how to deal with it. What we have recently introduced in the summer with this message-based situation handling, so that we actually have a situation page, a dedicated page with even more details. This is for long-running jobs. So if they run overnight and there's an error, then you get related actions shown to you, and customers can actually define which actions to propose for each message. So that, of course, is a powerful feature there. And I'll come to a little bit later to give you a heads up about what we're planning there. So looking at time, I'm really going to have to speed up a bit. Integration, of course, is important. What are we doing there in the web? As some of you might know, many customers are asking for a sort of central access point to access all the various applications that they have from SAP, be it S/4HANA or on-premise suite, or also the cloud products, third party as well. And for that, we offer the central entry point in the cloud. So the Launchpad service that can actually integrate these products. And we have content federation, because of course, if you look at S/4HANA with the hundreds or even thousands of UIs there, we wouldn't want to do all that integration manually. So federation means that we can automatically, for each role, press a button and have all the content put up to the Launchpad service, and from there, then navigate. From then on, the users just use the central Launchpad service rather than the local Launchpad. You still have the local Launchpad in these cases, but they can use a central one. And manual integration is available for SuccessFactors. They provide individual deep links, and of course with third-party products. What's also very new, as in a few weeks ago, we announced the SAP Mobile Start is available, generally available, first version, as a native mobile entry point for the enterprise. So, mobile users often have different native apps and also web applications scattered across their devices. So they often end up not making the decisions that they could be making. And I won't read the whole text here, but basically Mobile Start is the solution there. And the main aspects are you get notifications and application suggestions here in the application itself. So you have a sort of start page of the mobile app. You have an applications page where you get your native applications, so iOS apps in this case, plus also the web apps. So the UI5 apps, for example, or even classic UIs that run on the native, on the mobile device, plus web links and news feeds all in one place. And we've got a lot of iOS integration. So if you actually just use the Spotlight search that iOS has, then you can also find the applications. And these can also be the web apps that you have access to, not just native apps from SAP. We also support the widgets, so you can get the news feeds or also the applications and notifications directly in widgets here on the start page of your iOS device. And we also support native notifications. So if S/4HANA is giving you a notification, it can go directly natively to your mobile device. So that, of course, is pretty cool. And the architecture is very high level. The Mobile Start is connected up to the SAP Business Technology Platform, and it uses the Launchpad service that I introduced earlier for the central entry point as a technology also for managing the users and the integration. And we, of course, use also the notification service and the SAP Mobile Services as a foundation for, of course, the mobile integration. And we support the mobile applications from Concur and SuccessFactors, etc. And of course, S/4HANA. So very briefly now, I'm aware of the time. Development, of course, is important because you can develop your own applications with Fiori. And of course, there are a number of paths to get Fiori apps. Obviously, use the out-of-the-box SAP apps. You can use screen personas simply to adapt the existing classic UIs, for example, or you can, of course, develop your new apps. So using Fiori Elements and the pattern-based approach is really a low-code, a very powerful low-code way of developing. Fiori Tools is a productivity tool within the Business Application Studio for doing that. Or, of course, you can also do a freestyle application if one of these patterns doesn't fit your use. Or, of course, do native mobile apps. And for that, Fiori Elements, as you can see, this is the experience we've had building S/4HANA apps. 80% reduction in front-end development costs. We're completely compliant to any updates we have in the design system. And 80% typically of the enterprise use cases we have in S/4HANA are actually supported using these patterns. Here you see examples of what you get out of the box. So you not only get the pattern, you get all this filtering, for example, out of the box, the search of the lists, the variant management, so you can save different filters, for example. You, of course, export to Excel, these kind of things, the navigation. So you go from the list to the actual object page itself, the object details, the editing. All of this you get completely out of the box. It's always accessible, internationalization, so it supports different countries as well, responsive, performance optimized, and so on. So this is far more than you would get from, say, React or Angular if you're developing with these frameworks. Of course, you can use SAP UI5. That is itself already a very powerful framework with accessibility built in, so already more powerful than Angular and React in many ways. But of course, with Fiori Elements, you have far less effort to get certain patterns. Obviously, the pattern has to fit. There are ways of tweaking it. So this is what we call extension development, where you can do some extensions with your own code and still end up with far less effort than if you did it pure freestyle. But of course, there can be use cases where freestyle development makes sense, and you still have a very efficient development using SAP UI5. So it still is a powerful framework, of course, but Fiori Elements really makes it a low-code framework. And using Fiori tools, very briefly, we have a sort of wizard-style approach. Of course, there's no such thing as a free lunch. If you have this low-code UI, you still have to have, obviously, the data coming from the back end. So we use OData services there with annotations. And so Fiori tools helps you understand the annotations also nicely and modeling the service. And it's available in the Business Application Studio in the cloud, but also for offline use on Microsoft Visual Studio Code, which of course is very popular with developers. For native apps, we have SDK. We actually have design guidelines and also SDKs for iOS and for Android. And you can save time with the design by following the guidelines and also with development using the SDKs. And we also have actually a mobile development kit that allows you to code once for both of these as well. So very briefly now, S4HANA. Fiori is the go-to user interface for S4HANA. I think I'll skip this in the interest of time. And what we have been doing is using Fiori for the innovations. So we haven't just taken a like-for-like replacement of the traditional transactions. With Fiori, we've focused on innovations. So you have a user with a certain role. They're accessing them via the Launchpad, the Fiori apps for the innovations, but also supplemented with classic UIs, like SAP GUI, for example, for HTML. And of course, depending on the roles that you have, you might have then a different set of applications that you use. And in all cases, you're profiting from the Launchpad generic services like search, like personalization, like collaboration. And we provide out-of-the-box role-specific navigation networks that allow you to navigate between the various applications. That's what we call as SAP Fiori Launchpad content. So the users start with the Launchpad. They can access then either these overviews or lists, Fiori apps, or go directly to the details. Here on the left, you see actually a Fiori application like the one we saw earlier. Here you see actually a classic UI. This is, I think, the display sales order. So the VA03. And you can, on premise, actually very easily now also get Fiori up and running. You can basically simply select the business roles in a sandbox system, use rapid Fiori activation, press a button, have a look at the system in action, and then adjust the content as needed, and then go live. And here you see we have the reference library available for learning about the roles supported. Then you can try out the sandbox and then adapt it, and then maybe have different UIs for your roles, and then use productively. Mobile, of course, is an important strategic aspect, well, not aspect, but strategic goal for us to support mobile, as I showed you at the very beginning of the strategy. So, of course, helping people choose where and when they work, how they interact, and so on. And available today with S4HANA Cloud is that all the UIs run on tablets, including all the classic UIs. So we've really enabled them that you can nicely scroll using the finger intuitively. It's not really, it is a different experience than with a mouse. And later next month, basically, we plan this also for S4HANA 2021 on premise. And like I mentioned here, you can see the roadmap for mobile. Mobile, of course, is very much, the native apps are very much industry specific, because they're very specific use cases where you're always out on the road, so to speak. Just recently, we've introduced Mobile Start, like I mentioned. You can see some other ones, Customer Guide and so on, Project Companion are available. And the white ones are on the roadmap. And coming to the Target Designer, just a couple of slides to give you an outlook here. On consistency, of course, we're looking at various concepts and ideas now for really making this whole entry point pages much more attractive. So having cards, having different areas, and so on. And I think soon we'll be seeing much more on this. We have some more concrete ideas. So keep your eyes open in the next months and quarters for news on this area. On intelligence, of course, obviously we're working on bringing up intelligence also into the home pages, into these cards. The digital assistant is something we're working on, bringing in conversation UI, and situation handling is a cornerstone, of course. And let me show you here an example where we're working on providing a much richer situation page, for example, that can have even more explanations and context for the situation. And then we also have a digital assistant chatbot coming, actually planned with the 2021 release as well, for procurement, actually with purchaser, with hopefully then fast following the cost center owner, that will help users actually then also have natural language interaction with the system. And then finally, integration, just to wrap up, if we get to the Q&A, of course, here we're looking at having a central start point in the cloud, as a web start point. We have mobile start, of course, as the mobile start point. We want to have one in the web where you can access your various applications. And this really is a design preview. I think the design proposals now look quite different, in fact, but still very much work in progress. And of course, another important aspect is not only having a start point to your applications, but also having a central place, for example, to access all your tasks, all your workflow items. And this is the SAP Task Center that will be integrated there. And here you can see a link to the roadmap for the Launchpad service. So this is, of course, where we're heading, to have this integrated experience. And finally, there's just when you get the slides later, some links for you to learn more. And with that, I would say let's have a look now simply at the Q&A. I don't know, Taurus, how do you want to do that? Do you want to read them, or should I?
Well, we could first, if there's anybody that wants to ask an audio question, maybe if you just raise your hand with the Zoom. There are some questions in the chat. We can go through those as well, Tom. But if there's anybody who wants to ask a question, just raise your hand. So the first person is Ankit Mishra. So if you want to unmute your line and ask your question to Tom.
Yeah. Hello, Tom. First of all, it was a very nice session. Thank you. My question is, can we implement the Fiori standard apps? Suppose if we are working on NetWeaver 7.4 or 7.5 environment, as such, is it mandatory that we should have a HANA landscape, or we are currently working on HANA cloud scenario, or can we implement it in NetWeaver 7.4 or 7.5 as well? Thank you.
Yes, well, if you have a NetWeaver 7.4 backend system, so your ECC, for example, you do need to have the Fiori front-end server running. So that would have to be a new system running next to your ECC system. And that Fiori front-end server can be the newest version. So that means, therefore, that you can actually profit from a lot of these, at least from the development point of view, a lot of these aspects using the front-end server, and hook that up to the ECC backend. Obviously,
thank you.
Things like for example, what comes with S/4HANA, like the situation framework, obviously that's not available in ECC. You have to have S/4HANA for that. But at least from a development point of view, with SAP UI5 and so on, you can do a lot with the Fiori front-end server.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Next question is from Gaurav Sharma. If you want to unmute your line and ask your question.
Yeah, hi everyone. Just wanted to let you know that we have recently gone live on the S/4HANA from ECC to ECC6 to S/4HANA 1909. We have the Fiori inbuilt, embedded Fiori we have enrolled in. But I just wanted to know what is the best strategy to move the GUI users to Fiori, because in our scenario, custom code users is quite heavy. How we can move our GUI users to the Fiori? We really want that our users should use the maximum benefits of this Fiori implementation. We have implemented the S/4HANA only for Fiori, we can say.
Okay, so the audio is a bit difficult, but basically I understood the question that how can you best help your users who are used to using the SAP GUI to the new Fiori user experience in S/4HANA. And I think the important thing is, like I said, in the Launchpad, you maybe I'll share my screen again. I'll just show the screen. The users can access, here we go, with this Launchpad as an entry point. Some of these tiles can actually take users to a classic UI. So this here is actually an SAP GUI for HTML. So that they can use the same transactions that they're used to using, but it looks different. It looks now, they have this Fiori user experience. And so that's basically, of course, the way to do it, that you, of course, give them some of the new applications, depending, of course, on the availability. And obviously, you have to do some education as well to explain the benefits that they have. Otherwise, they won't obviously want to do it. But you can also take away a bit of the fear by saying, you still can also use the classic transactions also via the Launchpad. And of course, show them also the benefits of the Launchpad, especially enterprise search, that they can search for things very easily and they can define their favorites themselves. So which are the applications that they regularly use. And that's how I would do it. But you do have to take time to educate the people about the possibilities and the benefits that they have. So because change is always difficult.
Okay, so there's another question from Kiran Babu.
Mm-hmm.
Kiran, if you want to unmute your line.
Yeah. Thank you for the chance given. And as we are also gone live with S/4HANA recently, and we wanted to push Fiori adoption to the people. But the main problem for us is the Fiori standard apps the people are not finding it useful for them as is. And if we wanted to do an extension on the base apps, how to go about, and authorization restrictions also, like sales group or is not possible in standard Fiori, how to address that. And extension, one more question, and extension is the a standard, we have done customization on the few standard screens. If there are any custom fields, how to address that too is, and in standard, if completely custom, how to do it? Yeah, you can answer how many.
Yes.
Okay.
Same question from my side also. Thanks.
Okay. So, well, obviously, I mean the applications you give to a user obviously should help them do their work. So if your user finds that the Fiori app is not helping them in their particular use case, but they can do their work with the classic UI, then of course you have to give them the classic UI. I mean, that's clear. They have to be able to do their work properly. And there are some cases where, depending on the business you have, the classic UIs are still needed and the Fiori app is not helping. I think it depends on the user. Some users will certainly have quite a few Fiori applications that help them. Some users will have fewer, but they still can profit from having their applications running in the Launchpad, having the search, for example, having notifications potentially. So that, of course, is still a benefit overall, even if they're not using that much of the new Fiori apps. Now, coming to your question, how to extend the Fiori apps, we actually have now with UI5 flexibility, we have a lot of good ways to extend apps. So if you've got your own custom fields added, for example, then you can include those into the application modification free. So there's quite a lot of material, I think, in the documentation of S4 how to do that. So that's definitely also possible.
Okay. Is there
Thank
anyone?
You. Thank you.
Okay, great. Is there anyone else that has? Okay, I see Pankaj. If you want to unmute your line.
Thank you. I'm Pankaj from BPCL. I would like to ask a few questions. We are currently working on SAP ECC, and our database is not HANA. So in that context, we have a very limited application available as per the library. So is there going to be any change in that we could be able to use more application from that?
Well, no, we're not planning on building new applications for ECC. So really, if you want to use more out-of-the-box SAP applications, then really you need to go to S/4HANA. Nevertheless, you can still, of course, if you're willing to develop, for example, native mobile apps for certain use cases, or of course also web-based apps, you can still do a lot on ECC. We have quite a few customers who've built a lot of apps. There was one even who built 70 or 80 apps, native apps, for their users for ECC, and got really great feedback. They loved it. They loved using them. So, but obviously it's more a case of you developing your own. Plus, of course, the limited number that we have in SAP. Otherwise, go to S/4HANA.
Thank you.
Taurus, I think we have about 20 odd questions on the chat as well. So maybe we go through those questions as well.
Sure. So if I just go back up, and again, if we do miss a question or two, please let us know. So first of all, is HANA necessary for Fiori implementation? Can we implement it with NetWeaver 7.4?
Yeah, I think I actually already answered that. So yes, you can.
Okay.
Using the front-end server, yeah.
Okay. Our spaces and pages for. Go ahead.
Taurus, there is an even earlier question, which is how to make Fiori offline available. If network is not available and we have a requirement of some audit or checklist using Fiori apps, is that possible? And if yes, how do we do that?
Good question. In fact, you have to, if you really need offline capabilities, then you have to build a native mobile app. And then you can, of course, store data there and then obviously interact then with the S/4HANA system when it becomes available. That's really the only way to do that.
Okay.
And there's one question. Difference in SAP has SAP BAS and SAP Web IDE. BAS is the next generation of the. Okay, that's just a comment. Is SAP HANA different from SAP Fiori? Obviously, the answer is yes.
Well, yes. HANA is a database. Fiori is the user interface.
So, Taurus, I've actually copied all the questions on an email from the chat. If it is okay, let me just quickly ask questions which has not already been answered. Is that okay?
Sure. Go ahead.
Thanks. There is a question around inbuilt analytic apps. So in the inbuilt analytics apps, we need logic on which system is giving us analytical values. So how can we limit the view? So where does that logic come from? And if they want to build something, how do they get that logic as well? Which enables the backend analytics, embedded analytics.
Okay, so well, basically with S/4HANA, of course, is running on a HANA database, so you have quite a lot of capabilities that you wouldn't have on a normal database, and you can simply basically you code. It's coding. You simply code against the database. In fact, I would go a step back. We have in S/4HANA we have these so-called CDS views, core data service views. You can define those, of course, and that's already very powerful. So you're not really going straight on the database, you're going on these core data service views. We can leverage some also from SAP, and then based on that, you can then do your analysis. And if you use, maybe I should have mentioned it, we have this RAP, which is a RESTful ABAP programming model, which also allows you to create very easily OData services from the back end. And these then fit perfectly to the Fiori elements on top. So you can very easily build these analytical applications that way.
Thomas, actually the question was that, like SAP has provided some standard analytical apps. Like in account receivable overview app, we can see the days sales outstanding is calculating 56, 57. When we live this application, mostly our core users have come with that. How system is calculating 56, 57? This is the question.
Okay, but that really depends on the application. holistically, if you like, the Fiori product manager, but I can't answer all the application details. So you'd have to really follow up with a
So my submission to you is that if you can provide us the logic on which the system where Fiori apps are calculating these values, it will be really helpful for us to give the presentation.
Right, you would have to follow up. I mean, maybe Taurus, that's something you could reach out to the product management team from financials.
So the objective here is once we go through the series, we're going to identify what follow-up sessions we need to do. So maybe future sessions will be application specific.
And Taurus, let me also answer this. So this is something that we can take up as well as part of the regular interactions that we have in INDUS. So I host a daily call. Maybe you should join one of those calls, and I can invite one of the experts for that call from the finance organization or from the logistics organization, depending upon where this question comes from, and we can take it up from there. The idea is that by the end of the series, most of these questions that you have raised would already have been answered. And if there is still pending questions, then we will invite experts who can actually answer those questions as well. So maybe moving on to the next question, Thomas, there is a question around how do we activate Fiori notifications?
Yeah, basically we have documentation there. The notifications are activated, if you like, kind of out of the box from workflow. So you can switch them on. I mean, you'd have to check in the notifications documentation, but workflow, for example, is automatically connected to notifications. So you would get then notified of workflow items, for example. And also procurement obviously has some notifications situations, but it's basically in the documentation.
Okay. So there is a question around multiple SAP HANA systems. Like, for example, if a customer has implemented S4 HANA, CAR, etc., and have implemented and are using Fiori, the question is how quickly can they identify the impact of any system upgrade? Whether they are upgrading, let's say, for example, S4 or CAR, how do they find out what is the impact, both on the system as well as on Fiori apps?
Right. So I mean, the good news is that the Fiori is backwards compatible, so that if you upgrade your S4HANA system, then the applications will continue to run. So that's really the important thing. So there shouldn't really be any negative impact. I mean, of course, if you want to see what's new, then of course you need to look at the what's new documentation. And in fact, in the learning slide I had, there's a blog post I posted in the summer, which explains where to find what's new on the Launchpad, what's new in UI5, and so on. So there are a lot of links to find out what's new there. So maybe just looking at time, if we have one more question, and then we could perhaps wrap up, and I could, of course, follow up the questions offline. I mean, Taurus, I could send an email and answer the remaining questions.
Thomas. This is Puneet. This is Puneet this side. Actually, I'm working on a HANA database, but I don't have a single idea how to go through them and how to start the Fiori and what the strategy I have to follow for the using the Fiori app. So what's the strategy we have to follow for the learning and Fiori app?
So when you say you're using HANA database, are you using S4 HANA or are you using business technology platform directly?
S4 HANA.
Well, perhaps the first place to look actually is we have a 4-week open SAP course, Introduction to Fiori, that gives you a complete overview. It was actually one of the most popular open SAP courses in SAP's history. I think it was the top 5 or top 3. We had, I think, nearly 50,000 registered participants, and it's still open there for you. Obviously, not for the examination, but the course material is there. So, I mean, 4-week course is actually every 5 days. It's per day 15 minutes, so it's not a huge amount of effort. And that will certainly point you in the right direction to see how to go about getting Fiori up and running and understanding how it works.
Okay, Thank you.
And the link, the link is on the slides also for the Open SAP course.
Right.
Now, where is the link?
Open.sap.com. If you go to open.sap.com, you can actually find the course.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Tom, if you can just send me your presentation so we can upload it.
Yeah, certainly.
And Mukesh, if you can maybe forward Tom his those questions you've accumulated, that he can answer
I'll do
those
that.
questions, and then we can provide it to everybody after the session is ended.
Yeah. Thanks,
Okay.
thanks, Toros, and thanks, Thomas, for taking us through the session. I think there are still a lot of open questions. Most of these will anyway be answered as part of the series. So please have some patience and attend the other sessions in the series so that all your questions get answered. And with that, I'd like to thank Thomas for your time and insight. Thanks, Toros, for your support. Thanks, Atul, for leading this entire thing for us, and everyone else for joining in. I'll see you tomorrow, same time, 3 p.m. India time, for the next session in the series.
Yeah, and I can just confirm you'll have quite a few of your questions answered in the next lectures as well.
Yeah.
So do join those. Thanks for attending, and good luck on your Fiori journey. Have a good day. Bye.
Thank you for a
Thank
great
you.
session.
Guys.
Thank you for a great session.
Thanks, Thomas.
Thank you.
I
Take
think
care.
also
Bye.
I want to highlight, Mukesh, that
Yes,
for
Atul.
tomorrow's session onwards, now we'll get more technical. So today
Yeah.
the session was an overview, but starting tomorrow, these sessions will become more technical, and it will be of great interest to the development and functional team, and also senior tech leaders. So it will be important for them to participate for the subsequent sessions as well. Yeah.
Super. Thank you so much, Atul.
Yeah.
That actually does the close. Take
Thank
care.
you.
Bye.
Bye.